Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on this holiday weekend. The people who needed to hear today are here today. So, let's see. Welcome to the Namakwa Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Doug Stewart, and I have the honor to be one of our lay worship associates in this kind and caring community of seekers, pathfinders, navigators to truth, and meaning and compassion. I'm joined today by Peter Schenk, another of our worship associates. I use the pronouns he, him, and his. We are people who are intentionally inclusive and believe all people are worthy of love. All are welcome here. I think I recognize everyone, and we don't have any visitors. Is that a true story? I think so. So there we go. So let's see. But I do hope that all of us can find a home for our spiritual and ethical selves. And speaking of ethical selves, this service will be recorded, and it will be posted to our website. So we all need to behave. So just stay calm. Before we begin our service, I have a few announcements about upcoming events. We have 2 meditation events this week. Monday evening from 7 to 8, there's a meditation event on Zoom. And so 7 and 8 Monday, tomorrow, and you can see the church calendar for the Zoom link. There's also on Wednesday at 10 a.m. in Parker Hall, the social hall, we have a meditation group that meets, as I said, 10 a.m. Wednesday. So see Susan Moody if you have any questions about that, but everybody's welcome. We have signups for Sunday hospitality. So we're going to get to enjoy, after the service, we'll get to enjoy coffee and a little snack. And we need signups for a couple of Sundays, including next Sunday, for those hospitality items. So if you can help out on that, sign up there. A week from today, our Sunday service has a theme of silence. So it's going to be very Quakerish, I guess. Maybe not. Do we engage in the practice of silence often enough? Can we achieve silence in the world we live in? Or do we stay silent too often? Worship associates Kathy Hartman and Clay Roper will explore the many aspects of silence. Yes.
There will be a figure back there for the nomination for the
offering, the half plate. Yep, good. Yep. And I'll expand on that when we get to offering.
Yay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Good. It takes a village. Let's see. So, and finally, after the service, as I mentioned, we have coffee hour. So we can chat more over in the social hall, next building over. Welcome again. And now, if you will, just turn to a neighbor and say hi. And we're going to try a little, we're having a little difficulty piping the sound from a video into the sanctuary. So we're going to try this through a mic and the laptop speakers. It's going to be a little noisy, but we've got a video coming up here that it's called Let Justice Roll Down.
Because I felt that morally I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society, and it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons, and I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down. When the poor cry out for shelter and bread, let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. It can kill, rob, but the dream don't let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, but children, don't you want to kill? Justice roll down.
We'll have our cello sliding, and I'll hand it over to him.
I'm Worship Associate Peter Schenk, and we're going to light our chalice with these words. We light this flame for the light of truth, for the warmth of community, and for the fire of commitment. In our gathering, let us be lights for one another. Please join me as we speak our congregational affirmation together as a reminder how we strive to build beloved community together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is called. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Peter. And now, if you're willing and able, we'll sing the Unitarian Universalist Classic, number 123, Spirit of Life. It's in the gray hymnal, and we'll have the words on the screens. Let's sing this through twice. Yes, please stand if you're willing and able. think we have any kiddos here today except all of us. But I'd like to read about Rosa's bus for us. This is the ride to civil rights. When bus number 2857 rolled off the assembly line in 1948, no one cheered, no one paid attention, no one knew that one day bus number 2857 would be famous. The bus left General Motors factory in Michigan and headed for Terre Haute in Indiana, where it carried folks for several years before moving south to Alabama in 1954. Around the time the bus arrived in Montgomery, the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. ruled that separate schools for black children and white children were unequal. The civil rights movement was beginning to roll. By now, bus number 2857 was 6 years old. Its yellow paint had faded some, but inside, a few 10 seats back, there was a newly painted sign. It read, "Colored." When people climbed aboard bus number 2857, they paid a dime and took a seat in the front of the bus. When white people, that is, climbed aboard the bus, they paid a dime and took a seat in the front of the bus. Black people climbed aboard the bus, paid a dime, but had to walk down the steps and go into the rear door, even if it was raining, even if their legs were broken, even if they were cold and the steps were hard to climb. That's just the way things were. White sat up front, colored in back. Black people were called colored back then. That's just the way things were. When the white seats filled, the entire row of black people had to stand up so one white person could sit down. Black people weren't allowed to share a row with white people. That's just the way things were. If black people didn't stand up, the bus driver could have them arrested and they'd have to pay a fine. Those were the rules, called Jim Crow laws. That's just the way things were. Bus 2857 traveled the streets of Montgomery, carrying people to work, to church, and to the store. Black people needed the bus company needed the black people to ride. Jingle, jingle, dime upon dime, dimes kept the buses in business. But on one evening, on December 1st, 1955, a winter day like any other, bus number 2857 chugged down the streets, stopping at corners, brakes screeching, doors hissing. Mrs. Rosa Parks boarded the bus. After a long day of sewing and pressing clothes, she took a seat behind the sign at the next stop. All the front seats were filled, and a white man was left standing. The bus driver motioned for Rosa and 3 other black passengers in her row to stand up so the white man could sit down. 3 passengers did as the driver ordered. Rosa sat still. The busload of people moaned and groaned, anxious to get home. The driver said, "Move or I'll have you arrested." Still, Rosa sat. That winter day, the police took Rosa to jail. Did you hear? Did you hear? Rosa was arrested. The news raced around town like a field on fire. Meetings were held at homes and at churches. Black leaders had been waiting for this moment, waiting for something to happen on the buses, something that would give people the courage to change the way things were. They printed flyers that read, "Please stay off the buses on Monday." On Monday morning, when bus 2857 pulled to its first stop, very few black faces were among those who climbed aboard. The same was true for every other bus in Montgomery. Led by the young minister named Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "The great glory of American democracy is the right to protest." Black people throughout the city vowed to avoid riding the buses until no one could tell them to move from their seats. The bus boycott lasted a week, then a month. Black people walked to church, to the store, to work. Their feet got sore, but still they walked. Some people who had cars offered others rides. Black taxi drivers offered special fares until they were stopped by the Jim Crow laws. The boycott went on and on. No dimes jingled in the coin box. Bus 2857 rode down the street with plenty of empty seats. A year after the boycott began, the Supreme Court ruled that the way things were in Montgomery must change. Black people could no longer be forced to give up their seats. They could sit in any seat they wanted. The civil rights movement had won an important victory. Bus 2857 was full again. Then the city replaced the old buses with ones that were shiny and new. Bus 2857 was put out of service. 55 years after it rolled off the assembly line, Bus 2857 returned to Michigan. This time, people cheered when the bus rolled into the Henry Ford Museum. Today, it welcomes people of all colors, those who remember the days when they sat behind the sign, and those who sat in front. It welcomes people who remember the way things were, and people who have only heard the stories. Think about bus number 2857. Imagine where it has been and where we have yet to go. And normally we would sing the children out. and I actually, I don't know. Can we do that? Can we do that in an imaginary way and just imagine that we are holding our children? So please rise and form an arch, and we'll sing. This will be "Go Now in Peace." So go. Here we go. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. One more time. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Thank you, thank you. This is the time in our Sunday service where we share the concerns and celebrations of our lives, of our personal lives. If you're able, please come to the front. We have a mic up here, and the folks on Zoom can then see you much more easily. But if you need me to bring the mic to you, I can do that. If we will, let's respond with a heartbeat to the joy or sorrow. Is anyone wanting to share something? Maybe come up front if you like. Any takers? Let me make sure we're on here. Yeah. There we go.
Test. I have a joy and a sorrow. I have a friend, close friend, and Friday was his last day of work. He retired. Driving home from Longmont to Loveland from the 287 bypass, he totaled his car with a truck that turned in front of him illegally with a trailer. And the good news is, this is the joy, he's not hurt, he's fine. So for that I'm thankful.
Sure.
Since
continuing with the car theme, yesterday I had the pleasure of spending 9 hours with my father, my mother-in-law, and my son. In my car, we drove from Loveland to Laramie, up over Snowy Range, stopped at a mountain lake, to encampment, down south to Walden, up over Cameron Pass to Mishawaka for dinner, and home to Stove Prairie. So it was a wonderful celebration. And the joy is my dad got to go on a new road that he'd never been on before. Keeping with the car theme, some of you noticed last Sunday I didn't have my little red car. I was driving my husband's tank, which is a Subaru, probably a small car, but to me it's a tank. But I couldn't drive because there was something wrong with my car and couldn't figure out what it was. So I had it totally checked out, and it turned out I had bent the front wheel. I ordered a new wheel for almost $800, and I had it installed Saturday morning. And when I picked it up, there was a box on the seat, which the wheel had come in. But little did I know, it contained the old wheel. So I now have a fifth wheel.
Hi, I'm Tam. Just want to let you know I got back from conference and it was transformative. If you've never been to GA, and I know y'all were watching the service on the television, and I didn't sit up front and I didn't turn around and wave because I wanted to be good and I wanted people to like me. And but I was sitting kind of close in case somebody saw my crazy hair in the shoulder. Yeah, were you? So I kind of was, maybe my hair and my shoulder was in it, and it was so outstanding. It was a great experience, and I want to have like a get together where I can share all the stories. And I brought a lot of swag back for the kids so that they knew that we were thinking of them and sending them love. And that's one joy. And the second joy was, y'all remember Pat McVie, Elder Pat McVie gave us a plant, and it's that kind of lonely there in the corner. And it didn't do well, and Dana and I took it out because it had died, and I was determined, so I struck the bottom off. And remember when Claire gave us those hyacinth, the little, right? So I'm like, please, 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 come on, get this up, some Claire magic. And the little sucker grew a root ball. So it's a plant that she's had since 1955. So I sent her a message. I'm like, would you like, I mean, it's living. You want it back? And she's like, no, I've got some. My grandkids have some. So Namakwa has its plant, it's loved, it's back again. And now I just need to know, what to do with it now that it's got its 9th life. So 2 awesome joys.
Let's do one more heartbeat for those joys and sorrows that have not been expressed, and for those outside of these walls. Peter will now lead us in a meditation.
Wow. Okay. So Vaughn has a message. Mickey and Vaughn moved Mickey's 97-year-old mother to memory care after she broke her hip a few weeks ago. We hope it's the last move for a while. And for Karen, my husband Ed is facing what might be some serious health issues. He's got some more tests in the next week or so, but won't be able to discuss these with his doctor until the 28th. We just need your positive energy sent our way. Thank you.
And now, Peter, would you join do our meditation?
This is meditation. As we prepare for our meditation, please find a comfortable position. And if you like, close your eyes. You can let go of any stress you may feel. Take a deep breath in and let it out. You're in a safe place. Nothing else needs to be done right now. Relax your face. You're in a safe place. Nothing else needs to be done right now. Relax your face. You're in a safe place. Nothing else needs to be done right now. Relax your shoulders. You can move them a bit. Roll them. Let your back rest against the back of your seat. You're in a safe place, and nothing else needs to be done right now. Relax your legs. Feel where they meet your seat. Feel your feet on the floor. You're in a safe place, and nothing else needs to be done right now. Your mind can wander, but bring your attention back to your sensations. Your back and legs on the seat, and your feet on the floor. You're breathing. Notice your sensations. And now, take a deep breath in and let it out. One more time. A deep breath in and let it out. Come back to the present. Relaxed and centered. One last breath in and let it out.
How does our sense of human rights evolve? Where does our sense of human rights come from? This 4th of July, I will celebrate my many freedoms and my many rights. I consider myself very fortunate indeed to be alive in this time and in this place, the United States of America. Today I can stand before you with the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech to say pretty much whatever I'd like. Well, as long as I don't endorse a candidate or political party and thus violate our 501c3 nonprofit status. It does seem like we've landed in a weird place as a nation when for-profit corporations can pour money into swaying political campaigns based on the Supreme Court's Citizens United ruling, while nonprofits such as us can't even discuss taking a stance on our representatives or parties, let alone making a donation to them. We can still talk about policies, though. Like, I can finally say that I came up with a rationale I can articulate for Black Lives Matter. It's a little bit hot, Alice. On Zoom. Okay, your plan. All right, we'll make do here. I can finally say I came up with a rationale I can articulate for Black Lives Matter when my son-in-law says exasperatingly, all lives matter. Next time it comes up, I'm going to tell him all houses matter too, but the house that's on fire deserves special care. The freedoms and rights we have are so precious. There have been and are regimes around the world where I'd have to severely censor myself, regimes where we couldn't even gather, where we wouldn't have religious freedom, let alone work to be designated an LGBTQ welcoming congregation. Our rights matter. We hold these truths to be self-evident, says the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When they were written, these words were radical and changed human history for the better. Today, we also find them ironic, or at the very best, aspirational, for several reasons. For one, they were authored by a holder of slaves. Rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, indeed. And as these rights were later captured in the Constitution, many rights were limited to males, and just ones born in this country. We could go on. Yet undeniably, the Declaration of Independence set the world on a new course. For the first time in modern history, an attempt at democracy was being born. Of the people, for the people, and by the people, as Lincoln would later say. Lincoln said those words in a speech commemorating a battleground fought over slavery, though some attempted to cast the war as being over states' rights. That we had to fight a civil war over individual rights demonstrates to whom individual rights extend is hardly self-evident and inalienable. And yet, we have a feel for rights. When someone's rights are violated, we feel this violation viscerally. How can rights seem so obvious, so self-evident that we feel them in our gut, and at the same time, they have evolved so much over time? How does our sense of rights evolve? Lynn Hunt is a professor of history at UCLA. In her book, Inventing Human Rights, she traces the origin of human rights. Interestingly, she finds human rights, rights that apply to everyone, to be a fairly modern invention. The English Bill of Rights in 1689, which referenced ancient rights and liberties, did not declare their equality, universality, or their naturalness. Even, 50, 60 years later, in 1734, when the phrase rights of humanity was used, it was used not to apply rights to people, among people, but to distinguish human rights from animal rights, rights of humanity. We did not yet have commonly recognized rights among ourselves. Instead, people had roles, such as the earlier feudal system's servants, serfs, vassals, knights, nobles, and monarchs. Each of these roles had expectations of what one could and couldn't do. But there was no commonly understood widespread right that pertained to everyone. Servants and serfs had it particularly tough, and women had few rights at all. In order for there to be a widespread sense of human rights, Hunt says, requires two things. First, people had to gain autonomy, to be considered a free moral agent with a discernment to know good from bad. Each person had to be perceived to have that freedom. And secondly, these autonomous people had to empathize with one another. Autonomy and empathy. Autonomy first. To have individual autonomy, you couldn't be under someone else's thumb. You had to be able to make choices independently. In the Renaissance, with its breakdown of the feudal system and the rise of the middle class, more and more people had an increasing measure of just such independence. The rise of the middle class was supported by none other than capitalism, the free market, with which society has had a love-hate relationship ever since. Capitalism started with a very free laissez-faire market in which buyers and sellers were free to find a trading match, and in which sellers had considerable free rein on how to produce their goods. Lots of room for individual initiative and freedom there. The freedom people had in the market would support the decline of feudalism's roles and the rise to an average quality of life. The free market would also lead capitalists into supporting slavery, child labor, unsafe working conditions and products, monopolies, and huge income inequality, among other horrors. We've been attempting to rein in capitalism ever since with values that we appeal to other than freedom, values like safety and compassion. But on the plus side, through capitalism, humankind gained a huge sense of individual freedom and autonomy. To at least some extent, I could now choose my work, choose what to sell, and choose what to buy. And you could too. We met at the market as free, autonomous individuals. But Hunt claims the shared recognition of autonomy is not enough to establish a common sense of rights across a society. Empathy is also required. Each autonomous person needed to feel that the other person was in some fundamental way like themselves. How did empathy for one another grow at this level of society? Now, it's not like empathy was new, but before the 1700s it was contained, maybe to one's family or perhaps one's church or maybe one's village. Beyond that, people didn't get around much. The other people were others. But in the 1700s, there was a growth in empathy at the societal level, at the level of society. And you'll never guess what Hunt attributes what helped cause this change. At least I'd never have guessed. Here's a hint. The printing press had been around 300 years and was now in fine form, cranking out all kinds of books. Anybody have a guess? Hunt says one of the main creators of empathy in the 1730s was the romance novel. These are brand new. Among the first of these was from France, and it was entitled Julie. It was written as a set of letters to and from a young lady named Julie. The reader finds from these letters that Julie falls in love with her poor tutor. But her authoritarian father has matched her with an older Russian soldier who once saved his life. She marries the older man. All sorts of heartbreaks ensue. By the end, she would die a tragic death, saving her young son from drowning. And the middle and the upper classes just ate it up. It was Beatles and Star Wars and Harry Potter all rolled into one. While Voltaire put up his nose and disparaged this miserable trash, the book review of the Journal des Savants found only the unfeeling could resist the torrents of emotion that so ravage the soul, that so imperiously, so tyrannically extract such bitter tears. Courtiers, clergy, military officers, and ordinary people wrote in droves to the author, speaking of feelings of devouring fire and emotions upon emotions, upheavals upon upheavals. One reader recounted shrieking, howling like an animal over Julie's death. The book saw 115 French editions and was translated and had 10 editions in English. Hunt says, Julie encouraged a highly charged identification with the characters, and in so doing enabled readers to empathize across class, sex, and national lines. With the help of mass media, the masses had suddenly awakened to the fact that others were like themselves. With mass media, many more people could be exposed to others' narratives and take them in. You might be a different class or religion or gender or nationality, but you were still a person like me. Now, there was finally a critical mass of autonomy and empathy, and the sparks for human rights began to catch fire. Among the first was to ban torture, which had been widely used to gain confessions from the accused, not convicted, as well as punishment for the convicted. Gained also was freedom of religion, freedom of speech. People began to see more and more people as morally autonomous. Good heavens, you might not even need to be a landowner to know right from wrong. But for a long time, you would still have to be male. The circle of freedoms and rights kept growing and keeps growing today based on our granting one another independence and our empathizing, connecting, relating with that independent other. So rights are hardly self-evident and inalienable. They just seem that way once it becomes obvious you're a person I can empathize with. That if I were in your shoes, I don't want to be treated as having these rights. At their heart, rights come from compassion and caring for the other. Understanding one another's stories is key to both my recognizing your personhood and empathizing with you, just as Julie's story established her as a person with feelings that a person could empathize with. That rights evolve and are not in fact self-evident and inalienable means they can be advanced. But it also means they can be eroded. We see this tension today with women's rights and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and with a ruling just this week in favor of a Colorado company who refused to create websites for same-sex weddings. Freedom of speech, the Supreme Court ruled. If we want to help expand the human rights of the world, we need to help one another understand one another's story. If I understand someone's story, I see them as a person I can empathize with and step into their shoes. Rights will then follow. But it sometimes seems like such a long road. As important as rights are, we should not stop at rights. While they're critical to our bettering society, we should and we can and should go beyond them. Let me give you an example. We have the right to free speech embodied in the Constitution's First Amendment. However, there are limits, and as there are with all rights, Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, a Unitarian by the way, famously said the most stringent protection of free speech would not protect a person falsely shouting "fire" in a theater and causing panic. So he said you can't yell fire in a crowded theater and cause panic. Yet presumably in an empty theater, it would be fine to yell fire. And in this context, that would be kind of humorous. Probably if there was just one other person present watching the show, yelling fire would still be legal. Rude, perhaps, but not really a danger. How crowded does a theater have to be then for yelling fire to be illegal? We can imagine lawyers debating about where the line is crossed between balancing the right of free speech and the risk to the right of life and limb. We can note two things about this thought experiment. First, rights are never inviolate. Their application must take into account the particularities of a situation, which is a hallmark not of justice, but of care and compassion. Justice seeks to fit a circumstance into the general rule. Caring and compassion seek to understand this particular circumstance and where it fits in the narrative of life. Second, caring and compassion can get to a moral judgment way easier than an appeal to rights. You don't have to appeal to rights to decide whether it's okay to yell fire. You wouldn't want to be rude to that one other person watching the show, or if the theater were crowded, to create an unsafe condition. Human rights, what they are and who can enjoy them, are neither self-evident nor inalienable. They evolve through our compassionately recognizing the other as an individual and empathizing with them. Rights come about through compassion and care at the societal level. We expand them by listening to and telling our stories one Julie at a time. And compassion and care that create rights ask us to go beyond rights. We can expand the dignity and worth of each person, not only by helping human rights evolve, but by simply being polite, by our showing that each one of us matters each day, because each one of us does. And now we'll take our offering. Each week, you support the work of our congregation in all the ways and values in the world through your generosity. In addition to supporting this church, half of our plate collection goes to a local nonprofit organization, helping us to make a difference beyond our walls. This is a new quarter, and we're still taking nominations for our local nonprofit recipient. So our social justice ministry is thinking, instead of doing this on a quarterly basis, doing this every 2 months and providing 6 nonprofits with our generosity. You can make nominations, and you can vote in the social hall. So please see, Kathy Hartman has some forms for us to make nominations and I think vote as well. We'll collect our offering while we listen to Cherry play "I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free." 318, "We Would Be One" in the gray hymnal. We'll have the words up on the slides. Please stand if you're willing and able.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of the community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.